Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Tai'Shar Manethrin, a Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Will.
I'm Sam.
And today we are on episode 7 of season 1. Excited to be talking about this one. I don't know about you, Sam. I feel like it bounces back nicely.
It does. It gets back on track. It's still not my favorite episode,
You're right,
but it's definitely better than the last one.
Yeah, it's funny because I agree with you. It's not my favorite episode, but it may have a few of my favorite moments.
Oh
of
yeah,
the series.
there are some epic scenes and moments that are very, very, very nice.
So, well, let's just dive right in.
Dive into the blood snow.
Yes, this might be my favorite scene that we have gotten so far out of anything.
Yeah, it's perfectly choreographed, beautiful set, costumes, just A+.
The thing that is kind of interesting that you and I talked about is, we won't get into
spoilers, right?
Spoilers, really, but is that on the X-ray, they do reveal the name
the character, right,
of the character.
And this is certainly not something that is revealed in the first book.
Right.
It is far, far later in the series, which is, in keeping with the goal of adapting the entire series as opposed to Eye of the World.
Right. I think it's in the X-ray, but I'm not going to say it here because
I agree. Yeah.
I don't think it should have been in the X-ray, because potentially later they'll tell her full story.
Yeah, exactly. There's some observations we could make that we will just hold for the spoiler section.
Yeah.
Although I'll say it, as far as the name goes, it's so either someone's never read any of the books and doesn't know that name from Winnie the Pooh and his and Tigger 2, or has read the books and knows who it is already. I mean, I guess there could be the odd person who's read a few of the books, but then still that name might not even be necessarily familiar.
Right. It's kind of interesting. And like you said, we'll be able to talk more clearly in spoilers, but this character has multiple names is what we'll say. And the fact that not only did they name her, but they gave her
her real name, not her made-up name.
Right, exactly.
Her real character name, not her made-up character name. Not her nickname, I should say.
Yeah, there you go. And all that to say, this choreography in this scene, it's exactly what you want for an introduction to the Aiel.
Yes. Pregnant Aiel lady takes on a whole bunch of dudes and just cleans house.
One of the things I love about it is, so often when you have a character who is fighting multiple assailants, it feels completely unrealistic, because it's like, well, yeah, I mean, they wouldn't just stand there, but she is fighting two people at the same time.
Yeah.
Several different ways.
Super cool.
The way that they work all that, to me, it just really succeeds at just telling you how awesome
shows
the Aiel are.
Ninja / Arabic Swedes.
Yes.
that are the Aiel, and this is a great introduction to them.
Yeah, the Ginger Ninjas.
Yes.
A small quibble is that she is unveiled for almost all of this.
I know. Yeah. Well, to be fair, she's in labor.
Right. Yes. That's why I say it's a small quibble.
And there's another reason we could give in spoiler section.
Yes. So anyway, my favorite cold open so far.
Yeah.
And there's been some great cold opens here.
Yeah.
I liked the cold open that showed us the White Cloaks. I loved the cold open with Logain. I've enjoyed these. And
this is a cool cold open that is nicely cut into the show at the end of the episode. It returns to our cold open in a beautiful way.
Yes.
Love that.
Looking at both the trailers and the leaked stuff, one of the things I said to Sam when we were texting about this episode is, we called so much of this episode as far as like the different scenes that were taking place, looking at different parts and being like, oh yeah, that's probably going to be this, and then this is going to happen.
Yeah.
We'll get to those moments. So, after the intro and everything, which I still find a little underwhelming. I
still skip.
Yeah.
Into the ways we go.
We rehash what happened at the end of the last episode. We talked all about it in the last.
There's some hand waving throwaway lines like, here are the reasons why
Right.
We can't reopen. Nice touch there that
I appreciate they're trying.
That channeling would attract Machin Shin.
Makes
Shin.
sense.
That's not in the books, but sure, that fits. I have no problem with that, really.
Yeah, makes sense.
So what do we think about the ways then? So let's dive into that.
What were your initial?
It certainly in a lot of ways fits my mental image.
Sure.
There are moments where I was aware I was looking at a set.
Yeah.
It's like with the kind of the way the lightning would flash. It's just like this seems like a manufactured moment, and that's fine. I mean, it's okay.
Right. It's funny because I completely agree with both of those statements. I think both, it's very much the way I pictured it.
Yep.
But then also there are moments where it's like, this is taking place on a soundstage someplace.
Right. I think it just highlights how difficult it is to do these kind of otherworldly scenes.
Right.
That you don't have this kind of thing happen in a show like Game of Thrones because Game of Thrones doesn't have something quite like the ways,
right?
So it's harder to stick the landing on this kind of thing, and also having to do lots of channeling CGI, and as we've talked about, like it's just inevitable that there's going to be choices that have to be made in terms of where the budget is spent.
Right. When it feels like a set, it's because I'm aware of how small the space they're actually standing in is. Yeah. Whereas my feeling about the ways, well, the darkness is like infinite, right? So
we needed something to establish that a little bit better, I think.
Yeah, I wanted there to be some scale to it that made it feel like they were not just in a cave, but in like infinite darkness in every direction.
I don't know why I always pictured wooden bridges everywhere, and
I feel like there was some art at some point that may have had bridges and something, whether or not that they're actually mentioned. There definitely are points at which they get to places and some ways are blocked now. So like,
being cave-like certainly makes sense.
Right. So,
honestly, at times it reminds me of like, I don't know, Diablo, or if anyone's played Final Fantasy Tactics, the deep dungeon, like the just the layout, the feel of the darkness, and where you just see a few steps in front of you.
I agree. It's just a lot like Diablo. I have a moment here that I just love with Loyal, where he's explaining you'll be falling into a bottomless pit if you slip off of one of the paths. He says, or worse. And she says,
what could be worse?
What could be worse? And Loyal says, well, I could think of at least 6 things.
Rand's like, okay, shut up.
Yeah, Rand's like, we get it. It's such a great Loyal moment.
It is good. Yeah, definitely works well for Loyal.
I think they did a good job of showing that they're traveling without making it too tedious.
Yeah.
And which is always I think a challenge in travelogue, kind of, whether you're talking fantasy or whether you're just telling the stories of two guys doing America.
Sure.
When you're trying to indicate time passing and everything without having an enormous amount of things to talk about at this point. They do a good job of
having some like conversation that's entertaining and passes the time and shows them walking some.
Right.
It's not all just intense conversation. It's a common problem, especially in fantasy, since so much fantasy is the great quest and traveling and what always tends to happen, at least first. Certainly happens plenty in the series.
So they come across a guiding.
That irked me a tiny bit.
And it's all scratched up. And they're acting like this is all unusual. I feel like in the books, it was just like, well, the ways are basically, they're almost abandoned and like very rarely used because they are so dangerous at this point. Whereas it almost feels like in the show that they are well traveled.
Right. Yeah. There's a few times where people say, oh, you were in the ways. Okay. So why?
Later on in this episode, they say something about going and fencing up the way gate. In the books, it's more like people aren't even aware of the way gates.
Right. It's just been abandoned for so long that no one is even would even consider it, which is, to be fair, maybe a little bit weird since all you had to do was move an Avendosora leaf, if you knew where it was.
Yeah, it's basically like only the Ogier seem to know where they are, and the Aes Sedai are aware of them, but they wouldn't be able to like locate them. Whereas this is like, it feels more like this is like the subway station. Like, go up to the The Waygate. Oh yeah, we all know where that is. There's a moment here in the Ways that I actually didn't hear when I was listening to it. Watching it. I watched it on my phone.
Yeah, same.
The first time. It's in the captions, and it explains that shortly before the Trolloc appears, there is some whistling.
I heard the whistling. I wasn't sure what that was.
I guess, it's supposed to be Podon Fane. He's been whistling, every time we've seen him.
Where in the world is Podon Fane?
And then we get this Trolloc kind of come out of nowhere.
There's pretty good Trolloc.
Yeah,
it's pretty good looking Trolloc. Yeah,
it's a decent Trolloc. Yeah. I'd vote for him on America's Got Trollocs.
I would watch that.
What would be like the Miss America or Miss Universe equivalent for Trollocs? Like
eat all the humans.
Something that would be like a pageant where it's all.
I'm thinking the Masked Singer, but he doesn't have to wear a mask.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we have this moment. There's some channeling. Now they're all like, "Dang, Ma Chin is going to come after us." And
this is a little bit different from what I would have pictured, maybe.
Very different.
It's giving me the impression of like possessed bats.
Right.
These are COVID bats, but they're just kind of jerks. They're just saying unpleasant stuff. I thought they were supposed to eat souls, but they don't seem to really be doing that. They're just kind of making people feel bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they even Loyal even says that they'll eat your soul, but they just don't seem to be doing that. I don't know, maybe they were going to get around to it, but they just wanted to make it feel bad first.
Yeah, maybe it just takes a while. So in the books, when it gets close,
you can hear voices. Yeah, the voices. Sure. But I mean, they're just swirling all around. So
right, yeah, exactly. I definitely was picturing Smokey from Lost, basically.
Same.
I wonder if it wasn't somewhat of a budgetary thing that...
Yeah, well, they couldn't do something more CG kind of. I'm imagining like Ghostbuster faces, like Slimer coming out of the edge of a cloud kind of faces. Sure. Kind of that's what I was always picturing.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, something where it's like even almost looks like faces of people that are saying awful things to you.
Because it certainly sounded like their own voices mixed with a possessed voice, maybe talking to them, saying all that stuff.
Yeah, I think the important thing that you do get here is like, okay, this is dangerous. They're in a dangerous situation, and even Moraine is somewhat overwhelmed.
And then Nynaeve steps up and does some channeling.
Yeah, she gets angry and provides a shield against Ma Chin. It gives them the reprieve they need to get to the closest Waygate, which instead of being
Faldera.
Presumably they were going straight to the Eye of the World.
Right.
Maybe there was a Waygate closer, and then they end up at Faldera.
I appreciate the effort here to sort of get back on track with the book.
Yes.
To some degree, which is nice. I mean, there's still changes in Faldera, but
right.
Yeah, sure.
You have a lot of getting back to what kind of was happening in the earlier episodes of this is just a remix instead of whole
rather
cloth.
Than just completely divorcing itself from the book. Yeah,
right.
And it's like we are getting the events of Eye of the World in broad strokes, even if the specifics are in some cases significantly different.
Right. They get through the Waygate to Faldera. They're obviously all having really had a hard time in there. They're still
watching Shin really has them all in their feelings.
Yeah. they just look all rough, like, oh my goodness, I need a minute.
I ain't got no friends.
I mean, it's an important character moment where
kind of their deepest fears, really.
Yeah, we kind of find out a little bit about them too, because we get to hear them, like the fact that Moraine actually is afraid of all of them dying.
Right.
That while she does say, and I believe, of course, because she can't lie, we know it's true that she would kill them before letting the Dark One have them. She also is afraid of that essentially happening, of them having to die, and she doesn't want that. So, and by that token, I think we should be able to look at her as a at least semi-compassionate person. But anyway, as
the rest of them are sort of relationship stuff, not all, but a lot of that.
Yeah, a lot of that going on right now. Yeah, there's a little,
which is really one of the most cringy parts, or the things that doesn't make this my favorite episode of some of that stuff. Yeah,
exactly. It's I think fans of the book will pretty much all be in agreement over the change that I almost wonder if it's a result of the Barney Harris stuff that they had.
Sure. They needed to they just had to scramble to come up with some lines to explain him not being there, and then like they have to have this other tension to fill some time almost. Sure, where they might have had tension with Matt resolving his weirdness with the dagger, or
I don't know. Anyway, they walk into Faldera. The Faldera is awesome, beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely great, giant, beautiful fortress. Exactly what I pictured. Totally cool.
Yeah, as they walk in and all these top knotted warriors. Uno is there. We get to see Uno.
Yes, Uno is perfect. I thought the other one could have been maybe Masima or, but anyways, his name is Lord Yakoda.
Yeah, so, I saw that too.
Lord Yakoda.
So he's I don't if he's in the books. I'm sure our readers will tell us. They have let us know, for example, that Stepan is mentioned in New Spring. I had 2 different people write me on that. Yes,
okay. So I mean, it's been so long since I read New Spring that's fine.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
We should definitely at this point, I think.
But anyway, so we've got then Agilmar.
Yeah, Agilmar is great. I first saw him, I thought like a mix between like Shang Tsung and but no, he's great. It's perfect, Agilmar.
Yeah. This feels fairly true to the books. He walks up, he's immediately like, "What's up, Daishan? We're homies." He's a little more distrustful of Moraine than he is in the books, which I'm kind of neutral on.
He kind of shoots his mouth off a little bit, and then she's like, we're not here for that. And he says, "Oh, okay. Well, yeah, sorry."
And it feels like to me, there's some times where having taken several screenwriting courses in my life, there's principle that you want every scene to have a conflict. Which is true largely.
Even like some minor unpleasantness,
right? And
just so, general sense of rudeness,
right? That's what this felt like to me. Is not that it was bad. That's why I say I'm kind of neutral on it. It kind of felt we can't just have it be just a simple back and forth, like, "Oh yeah, we're excited you're here," and then
right.
Okay, and then straight to the exposition of like the Dark One is rising and I'm here, and by the way, you need to wall up the Waygate. But they had to have a little bit of a just to make sure there was some clear conflict in the scene. I don't know.
Morgan says he finished. That's not why we're here.
Yes, and then he's like, "Oh, I offended you, and my bad," and he's kind of back to a little more the way he is in the book, which is very congenial towards the Aes Sedai. At the end of this scene, when we clip back to the Waygate, they have not walled it up yet, which is too bad because then we see these boots. I love these boots, by the way. I feel like they're evil-looking boots,
Okay.
By the way, if you haven't figured it out, if you see a character's shoes first, they're almost always an important character in any movie or TV show.
That's true.
If you see their shoes first, it's like, oh, this is an important character.
Especially if it's in a little bit of slow motion. Showing cut to Moraine and Lady Amalisa, who she couldn't channel in the book, could she? Don't think I remember that.
Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but
the wiki certainly doesn't mention it.
Yeah,
she's just a noble lady.
What it establishes, though, is that
that people have been cast out of they're kind of washed out of the tower. And they'll make it to full sisterhood.
It kind of explains several things all at once. That you have the whole business of nobility sending their children to the White Tower as a practice, which will probably come into play a little bit more in season 2 when we meet another character.
There's absolutely another character that does that.
And it establishes that, but also you're right. It gives you an example of somebody who made it to the tower, was there long enough to get a great serpent ring, so she at least made it to accepted.
Yep.
And but then
it's weird. I guess the fact that she made it to accepted. I was going to say, compared to this other character who should not be named yet, that could barely channel anything. This one, she can light a torch with the power. But yeah, if she made it to accept it, I guess that makes sense that she would at least be able to do that.
Right. It also gives us another little piece of lore that's unique to the show, which is, like we said, when you get to the kind of the second level in between what they call a novice and a full sister in the books, you get this great serpent ring. Well, but what they're also showing when they lift her hand is that there's no jewel.
It's empty. Right. It's just a gold band with no Aja selected jewel. Sure.
So that
kind of
also,
Green Lantern-esque.
Right. So that also reveals something.
No evil shall escape my sight.
We've got a scene with Nynaeve and Perrin. We're continuing to set up our least favorite part of this episode.
Yeah, just kind of cringy weirdness.
And it's funny because
moment, he kind of walks by.
Yes,
that's Padan Fain.
Padan Fain comes by, and he's like, "Wait, I thought that was Padan Fain," and they're like, "Nah, he's dead." He's whistling too when he comes by.
Of course, right.
But then we get an introduction.
Then we go to Min, who is not in Baerlon. She is in Faldara, which, sure, okay.
Yeah.
I got no beef.
Yeah, why not?
I have a thought about this that I will reserve for the spoiler section.
Okay. One thing that's a little different is they refer to her as a seer, which is what she essentially is. Yeah.
Right.
In the book, she's unique. It's not like there are a bunch of
sure.
Seers.
She has a talent with a capital T, and that is
right
from the pattern that no one else has.
Right.
Which is, I guess, would have been a little hard to explain in exposition. I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah. Part of the thing that I guess liked about that a little bit is that the Aes Sedai in the books are more confounded by her.
Yeah, they've never seen anything like her before.
Right. Whereas here it seems a little passé and
right, a little bit more like your typical fantasy trope. Almost like we've kind of made it a little bit too simple. I don't know. I don't have a big problem with it unless we start seeing seers pop up everywhere.
Right. Exactly.
I wouldn't like that.
My minor quibble is the idea that the Aes Sedai would just let this person exist on her own. That's part of the thing in the books. As they discover her, they won't leave her alone.
Right.
So I'm curious what's going to keep her engaged at different points, because it's going to have to be a little different, I would think. Anyway, I don't want to give too much more away. We get to view see her viewings, which is cool. I like the way
some of them
look.
Are slightly confusing, maybe.
Yeah.
And with a baby, okay. And she said it's just like any other baby.
Yeah.
The other two make more sense.
Right.
White Flame and a Ring of Gold. Yep, those ones.
Which is actually
true.
Those are straight out of the book.
Yeah, those are perfect. Oh, okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. Min sees those when she first sees those girls, and I think it's actually out of book 2 when you hear those.
Okay.
So anyway,
she gives Moraine a viewing that the Amaranth seat will be her downfall.
Right. Interesting. Moraine does explain to the Two Rivers 4 now, I guess, what Min is, and saying,
she get a good image of like Min. She's standing behind the bar. I was trying to tell if she was wearing breeches.
yeah. That is a little bit of a thing, like, because that's a big deal in the in the book, is that she never wears a skirt or a dress.
Right,
she's
can't tell.
Always dressed more like a boy. She's got the short hair.
Yep.
And in general, I feel like her kind of passé, jaded a little bit, kind of, I feel like that kind of fits. It's different than I pictured, but I'm kind of like, I'm feeling it.
Sure.
I can go with this. I can see how it still feels like an interpretation of Min as she is in the books, even if it's not like the picture I had. The next scene is largely just
awful.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just, it's everything it's
soapy. It's like a soap opera. It's like or like something from the CW. We don't need that. We don't need this drama nonsense.
And to be clear, we've said this a lot. I love the performances. I love the actors.
Yeah, sure.
It's not even like the dialogue, like the lines are bad. It's just
a little bit. The lines are bad to me.
Okay. to me, it's
just
like
a few of them, not many. Just
it's specifically the concept, the conflict, the stuff that's happening when we get into this love triangle.
Yes,
with Rand and Perrin and Egwene.
Right, that just should not be in there, man. That was just something that was always struck me in the books. The time that Egwene and Perrin spent together, there was just never any hint of that when they are together, separate from the group in the book. You don't have to always have that. Doesn't always have. Not everybody who spends time with the opposite sex has to catch feelings. You know. And not to say that necessarily that's what happened here, but I don't know. It just kind of feels like that a little bit.
I mean, I know there were people that talked about it, and when the first 3 episodes dropped, there were people that said they saw that being hinted at, and I kind of just wanted it to not be there. Just going, no,
don't do that.
Yeah, then this shows up, and it's like, yep, that's what they're doing, and they're laying it all out. My hope is that this is just for a bit of drama right now, that it's not going to be...
Yeah. Oh, man. Please don't let this be an ongoing thing.
Yeah. I can forgive it if it doesn't... If it's
just Mach and Shin just messing with their heads, sure.
Right.
I'm going to have a lot of a problem with it if it's an ongoing, like, season-long bit of nonsense.
Right. Yeah. It better not show up next season. As it gets into the drama of it, where they're turning their back on each other and there's tears in each other's eyes. That's where, little CW-ish.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, as a fan of the book, for one thing, to be honest, anytime I'm just aware of the manufactured tension.
Yes.
Because
certainly Robert Jordan did not do this sort of thing well either.
I mean, we've talked about that a lot.
It's just not done well. So I can see why they would want to do something different, remix that. I just don't like the way they're doing it.
Yeah.
I want them to, I don't know. I don't know what I want them to do. I want them to do better, though.
if you're a fan of the books and you like this change, I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, please tell us why. I mean, maybe you can argue that it's more believable or something, and to which I would say, I don't like that.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Perrin was one of my favorite characters. He may be, I don't know, he might be my favorite Tavir, and I love Rand, I love Matt. I don't know. There's something about Perrin, his kindness and everything that is
right. And that's why this just feels so out of place for Perrin. It really does. Like, you could certainly see the Rand from the books throwing out a jab like that, but it just would be like in the Perrin from the books, it just wouldn't be true.
Right.
Well, he would just be kind of bewildered, like, no, of course, like hurt, maybe, like, no, of course not. But you can see that landed here, and it's like, oh, maybe there's some truth to that, and it's icky. Yeah.
And I so appreciated the Perrin in the books a little bit more, because I mean, like, he has his flaws, but I've said I don't like it, and I don't want to get into spoilers by talking more than I should. Let's go on to the next scene,
please.
We've got Moraine and Lan. There's this whole interesting thing, and I like it. I really like it, the way the bond is handled throughout these episodes, where Lan will ask her a question, she won't say anything, and then he'll speak her answer aloud. He's sensing.
He just knows it. Yeah, knows what she's feeling.
Just from getting a little bit of feeling from her and asking the question. I like that. I like these scenes between Lan and Moraine. The only thing I have is we had one kind of long talky scene, and then we're gonna have other kind of long talky scenes following this one. And that's not to say that we have to have an action scene every other scene. I do feel like
we've had talkiness for several episodes, so a little less talkiness would be okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we got the scene in the ways, and so that was sure, that was a little more action packed. Feels kind of like, we got our action kind of almost out of the way. So let's get back to just some
CW drama.
Yeah. And some decent character development. So after the scene with Lan and Moraine, that's when, to me, it gets into fun stuff with Lan going to see his kind of surrogate family, so to speak.
Yeah, I was a little nervous that they were going to just do away with Malkier and like have him just be from Faldera. So I was glad that they committed to doing the same thing as the book.
And
his bodyguard who smuggled him out of Malkir,
and you also get to see another man with the Hidori, the band. You do get the picture. Okay, this guy's from the same culture as Lan. They're sitting down for some nice pho, it looks like.
And Nynaeve is creepily looking in through the window.
Yes, and then in a very Lan-like moment, she looks away, and he's already standing next to her, right. Whoosh, like
it's like Batman.
Yeah, and. Yeah. Oh man, I hadn't made that connection. Yes, Lan is basically the Batman
right.
of the Wheel of Time. He's got like no superpowers, but
he doesn't need them.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
senses her out there. Doesn't even look over. Just like kind of looks up.
But this moment when Lan brings her in, and the reaction from the other folks, there's the first shot with his bodyguard, kind of surrogate father fella.
Mm-hmm.
Where he looks over at the other people at the table, like, "Oh my goodness, he brought a girl!"
Right?
It's so cute. It's so sweet.
It's good.
Like, and the way that they're all reacting is like, "What is this?
Who's this? Introduce us."
Yeah. So tell us about her. This kind of thing.
Right.
It's so cute.
Yeah, works well.
Once again, we hear him called Tai'Shar, and over here Lan is telling a story of Trollocs with big teeth to the little girl. It's very adorable. And,
it is. We could forgive the last scene a little bit, or the two scenes ago a little bit.
And Nynaeve is sitting there across the way. She is looking quite enamored.
Right.
We get into them in the hallway. They're, everything. They're having a good old time. And then on into the bedroom.
She just lets herself into his bedroom.
Yeah. And
very brazen, our Nynaeve.
Yes.
Fine. That's actually probably in character.
It is. It's
kind of not. Kind of is.
Yeah. It is, and it isn't. It's funny because
she wouldn't.
There is a way in which I can see the justification for a Nynaeve who would be very forward.
Yeah.
Also, at the same time, feel like there is an argument that it's like, well, but Two Rivers folks in the book are kind of prudish.
Yeah, they are. But like none of the other Two Rivers folk in the show have been prudish, so why would Nynaeve be?
Yeah, I think it's obviously an intentional change from the books to, just to be honest, to kind of sex it up a bit.
Yeah, of course.
Which, okay, sure. I mean, I will say I appreciate that it's a fade to black.
Yeah.
Then we get this scene with Rand practicing his archery,
forming the void. I would say the flame in the void. I would think. I mean, it's sort of unfortunate that we don't have his mental dialogue, because it's just an important part of the books. I almost would have liked like a supercut here of like Lan or of Tam teaching Rand to form the void.
Yeah.
Because that's like definitely what they're calling out to here, but it's just not, it's not something you can as easily convey in a TV show without dialogue.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. The scene with he and Egwene was one we saw leaked images of. And,
yes.
And we said it was Faldara.
Yep.
And boy, were we right.
Right on, yeah.
And also, I will say, we know this scene was shot post-COVID. You wonder if originally they would have had a crowd of people around, or milling around or something, or if anything
interesting. There's some social distancing going on here.
Yeah, you do notice like throughout this scene that they are almost entirely always
separate. Yeah. They're conveniently mad at each other, and
right. So, then at the end they manage to get close. And
he gets a COVID test, and that's okay.
Right. It works out fine. And she's like, "Hold on, let me shove this thing up your nose." And
Right.
Then we're all good.
So we need to be wearing masks in this.
They get busy. And by the way, there's a bit of symbolism between this and then the next scene we see him with the bow and arrow. Yeah. He missed the target repeatedly.
Mm-hmm. Because he was like distracted. And
we'll see in the next one, he hits the target repeatedly. But before we get there, we have this kind of follow-up scene with Nynaeve and Lan. She asks about Tai'Shar. What is Tai'Shar?
Right, and we get to find out all about Malkir.
Sam and I both said Lan's one of our favorite characters.
Mm-hmm.
I love the story of Malkier, and
I don't mind it being delivered via exposition here, because after all, it's delivered via exposition in the book too.
Yeah, it's true. In an infinite budget situation, all of these times where somebody tells a story,
right? Just cut to it.
Yeah, you would cut to it. But I understand that they can't do that. Just like you're talking about, like being able to cut to Tam teaching Rand about the flame and the void,
yep,
those kinds of things. But Daniel Henney is compelling, I think.
Absolutely.
When he's telling the story, you feel for this guy that would have been the king of a kingdom by now.
And she says, and now you finally belong to her.
Yeah. Lan kind of pushes back on that, and he's like, well, I mean, we're bonded, but it's it's not like, yeah, she doesn't own me exactly. But
right.
Then we cut to the Gwaine, and Rand has woken up, and we get the picture of that heron mark blade.
Yeah, now this is kind of the big reveal is coming here.
Yeah. So we called this too, by the way.
The cut back to to dragging Tam back to Emmons Field, Two Rivers.
Right. Yeah. So in the books, this occurs in real time, like after
we don't see what happens in the Two Rivers. I keep trying to say Emmons Field, the name of the village, because we're watching Rand dragging Tam back through the woods.
It's pretty much revealed in that moment, almost entirely, that Rand is the Dragon Reborn. In the books, it's like fairly obvious, because at that point, we already know. We've known this whole time that he was not born in the Two Rivers, and that he was adopted. And also, the book is from his perspective.
Right.
So that kind of gives it away. But then here, back in the show, we have a series of flashbacks. We start with him dragging Tam talking about finding Rand, and we can kind of piece together that Cold Open may have had something to do with it. And then we see that all these different times that Rand has channeled.
Right, breaking down the door with Dana, channeling to throw the Trolloc off of the edge of the waves, just instead of Egwene thinking she did it. Machin Shin telling him that he's the Dragon Reborn.
Right. So he goes to Min, because he's like, okay, she should be able to tell me.
Right.
And I like this scene with Min. I mean, like, to me, it's a lovely scene, because
so there's a moment there where she's not behind the bar. I was just trying to see if she's wearing pants. Cannot tell. Dang it.
She explains that her first vision was actually seeing who we now know had to have been Tam walking with who we now know had to have been baby Rand.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of makes sense. The idea that Rand would have triggered her, him being the Dragon Reborn and Ta'Viren and everything, triggering the manifestation of her seeing visions, and everything.
Yeah, so, that is indeed a change.
Anyway, then we get this
Pam's wearing a wig.
Yeah. We get the blood snow again, and find out that indeed
he has the golden bees Villian on his armor.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that. Yeah, I see that now. So he helps this Aiel woman give birth, and she dies. So he takes the baby, and then we see him look off in the distance, and there's the White Tower,
Dragon Mount.
So we get a clear picture of where we are, what this happens. It explains why Rand might feel a familiarness when he sees Dragon Mount.
I saw that mountain when I was a baby.
Sure. Back with Min and Rand asks what he sees around her now, and she says, rainbows, carnivals, and 3 beautiful women.
Right.
Which is funny for...
It is funny for multiple reasons. Yeah, we can get into that in the spoilers, I guess.
He asks about the Eye of the World.
Can someone please explain to us what it is?
Yeah, more or less. That would be great. She says yes. She sees him at the Eye of the World, but he asks if he makes it back, and she doesn't answer. So,
Min does not know all.
Right. Then we cut to
Sunrise.
Yes, the sun has come
Over
up.
Faldera.
Egwene's going to see Nynaeve, but when she comes to her room, she finds
bed is made. No one's been there.
Yeah. And Egwene has a little smile on her face.
Right.
Sits down. Conveniently, she doesn't have to wait too long before Nynaeve walks in, and she's like, "Hey, what have you been up
what
to?
What you doing?"
Nynaeve's just like, "Well, I couldn't sleep."
You couldn't.
Yeah, I bet you couldn't.
Let us be clear with the audience. We are okay with this pairing because this pairing occurs in the books.
Yes, exactly.
Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yes. Perrin walks in. Everybody acts like, okay, we're all cool now, right?
Right. And let's get past that old awkwardness from yesterday.
Yeah. And then all three of them say, okay, we're going to go to the Eye of the World now, right? And they're all like, yeah, sure.
Where's Rand?
Yeah, that's a good question. Perrin's like, I thought he was with you. And it's like,
right.
Who was watching Rand? He was right around here somewhere. Then we get Rand walking in.
Goes to Moraine.
And
says, I am the Dragon Reborn.
Meanwhile, Lan steps in and he's like, Moraine, which probably means she's up to something. And since she didn't bring the magic picture with her that lets her sneak away to Swans.
So she's somewhere else.
Yeah.
So then we cut to Moraine and Rand are headed towards the Blight, which that was another thing that we called was when we saw that set.
Right.
We said it was the Blight. And indeed it is.
Yeah. And I will say, this is different than I pictured the Blight, but I like it.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. Yeah, it's cool. It's pretty blighty. It's blidden. It makes me think of like possessed kudzu. Something.
Yeah, that's a good. That is a excellent analogy. Yeah, if you're not from the southeast, you may not be familiar with kudzu, which what did it come from originally? Because
I want to say Asia, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, for some reason I want to say Asia too.
It sounds Asian to me, but I don't
know. Yeah. Sometime like I don't know, 100 years ago or more, 200. Somebody brought it over from someplace to try to help stop erosion in like especially along like rivers and around lakes and stuff, which is why you see it so much in those areas. But like it wasn't part of the natural ecosystem. It just went crazy. And so you'll see sometimes these places where the kudzu, which is it's a vine, has just covered everything. And it's really quite insidious when it gets like out of control.
Right.
Kind of almost looks like something out of a fantasy book if you ever have seen it where it's really taken over.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like a house or something. There was
totally covered
place near where my grandparents live. I remember driving by and where the house had been overtaken completely by kudzu and it just looked nuts.
I've got a tree in my backyard. It's ivy, but it's the same concept.
Right.
It's like, I feel like ivy is like a little bit slower spreading maybe.
Exactly, yeah.
But it definitely is about to overtake this tree.
Yeah. Imagine it's basically like, ivy, but I think the vine is thicker and I think it grows faster.
Yeah. I think so, yeah.
And it's very bright green too.
Yep.
Anyway.
To the Eye of the World, go Moraine and Rand only.
With one episode left in this season.
Major change. We can, I guess we can get into spoilers here if we want.
Yeah, let's talk about spoilers. If you don't want to be spoiled on anything, including the third season of How I Met Your Mother.
Right.
I'm just spitballing here.
Please, yeah.
Everything from the books is going to be on the table. So if you don't want to be spoiled, leave now. Join us next week. Thanks for joining us. Okay. Lots to talk about here.
Yeah.
Where do you want to begin? Because
I think it's funny that men said three beautiful women. Yes. Like, well, you have an inflated opinion of yourself, I guess.
Yeah,
that's fun.
Rainbows and carnivals and three beautiful women.
Right. A little tongue in cheek there, maybe. Lan and Nynaeve in the books until once she gets married, she is pretty tense in the bedroom, it seems. But before that, she's definitely a prude, like Rand is in the books.
Right.
And so I don't have a problem with her and Lan, but also she is definitely more of a prude, just like all of the Two Rivers folk are in the book.
The Two Rivers folk in the book are depicted as innocent, as very almost
not
childlike
worldly at all. Yeah.
And then that's not to say that they're like children, but that they just are. They don't have any of the jadedness that comes with world experience, and so it's one thing I do miss from the book, but it's not like just like super angry about it. It's just like, yeah, I mean, I get why they make these changes.
Sure, yeah.
Tigraine. We got to talk.
That's right. That was the big one. Yeah. The fact that it's ironic that the first Aiel we meet is not an Aiel at all.
Right.
Tigraine, her whole story is that she's from Andor or from Kyrian. Kyrian? Is it?
No.
I can't remember. I can't remember which it is. I want to say Kyrian, but no, maybe she is from Andor. Anyway, whatever. She's a wetlander who goes a little crazy and goes to the Threefolds land and, gets pregnant by an Aiel man or Janduin.
Yeah.
Anyway. So it is adopted as a Maiden of the Spear, and so becomes a Maiden of the Spear. And so before she gets pregnant, becomes a Maiden of the Spear, but still not a raised Aiel, not like she's grown up. And so I can't remember how proficient she got. But it's just funny that this is our introduction to this awesome, powerful Aiel culture of warriors, especially warrior ladies, as a wetlander.
Tigraine's story is very interesting to me because in the books, because it creates the very dense lore as a part of it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's layers there that hopefully we'll keep that subtlety in the show.
I hope so, because like I could see them just saying, "Oh, Tigraine,
she's just an Aiel.
She's just an Aiel,"
right? And which I don't want them to do that.
Yeah, I liked the fact that there were all these layers to the domino effect. The fact that it was Tigraine leaving that resulted in several things happening. We hope they do Slayer at least differently. It's also part of what motivates, if I remember correctly, Luke to go into the Blight. It's also what results in
Morghese.
Yeah, Morghese's house.
Queen,
yeah.
I mean, with a name like Tigraine Mantier, like it's not an Aiel name at all.
Right.
So I think if they were going to go the route of her being an Aiel fully, they would have just given her the Aiel name, Shael, with some other, of the Tardad Sept or whatever.
Right, exactly.
They would have not gone out of their way to give her the Wetlander name. Right.
So I agree. I think it's likely that they're going to maintain that backstory. And I guess part of the reason why I like it is it's a reread kind of Easter egg.
It really is. It's not something that's easy to grasp, like without just thinking about it and really paying attention to what's happening.
Right.
All the connections, like you said.
After you read all this, then you realize, oh man.
Like Elaine and Rand are sort of weirdly related, but not by blood.
Yeah.
Importantly, not by blood.
Yeah. And like when Rand figures out that this is, his whole reaction of.
Right. He's like really trying to make sure that they're not related.
He's asking people's opinions like indirectly about it. It's like, so if there were a person who's,
like how closely are the royal family related to other houses
and maybe that's why she let her veil fall is she's
not an Aiel
an Aiel, and so she's
been trained by them. Clearly she can fight like them,
right,
but not fully an Aiel,
right. So yeah, there you go. That was the big one. Like
yeah I agree,
because Sam texted me was it yesterday or day before?
Yeah.
It was like, man, can you believe it? And
it's crazy. Great scene. Makes me excited to see more Aiel on the show.
Right. Yeah. I can't wait till we get to scenes with just tons of Aiel.
Just don't go too far with the slow-mo, the Zack Snyder 300 approach.
You could really overdo that quite easily. This episode, as we said, it had its downsides, but it definitely felt more like, okay, we're back to Wheel of Time now. It's Wheel of Time with a few things that they've changed that we still don't really love, but it's Wheel of Time versus
Fan fiction.
Yeah, last episode just felt like,
there were one or two scenes that were fan fiction of this one, but on the whole, it felt like the real time.
Exactly. And I'm very excited for the season finale.
Yes, absolutely.
And one of the things that'll be interesting is, we've talked about this, the end of Eye of the World. Within the fandom, it's not well loved. It's
true. It's weird. Yeah, the pool of Sidene, and then like finding the banner and the horn.
Just sitting there.
Yeah. And then the two Forsaken. It's just a really cringy dialogue, some problematic interactions with Nynaeve. Was it Bilal or I don't remember? Yeah, it's just awful. So I'm totally okay with him cutting that out.
Well, and even Shemeshta, the Green Man,
none of that. Like, totally okay with him cutting that out or putting it somewhere else. Like, this doesn't fit with this book in any way.
It feels very odd. And while he does technically show up in a flashback,
that's the only time. Yeah. Of course he dies at the end of Eye of the World.
Right.
I would be okay with them just having him show up in the flashback or something.
Yeah, that would be okay. A way to kind of nod a little bit to it. Like, he exists in this world, but he's a little bit like Tom Bombadil. Like,
that's exactly the comparison. You got to figure that's the reason the character is in the book at all, because at the end of the day, Robert Jordan was kind of riffing hard on Fellowship of the Ring, or on the whole trilogy.
Yeah, right. So, and he feels a lot like Tom Bombadil crossed with an Ent.
Yes.
Him being gone wouldn't radically change like the lore or the story.
Right, no.
However, I'm sure there are fans that will be very
really
upset.
Up in arms. We're already got a completely different situation with the Blight right now, and I don't know if Lan and Egwene, Perrin, Nynaeve will follow Moraine and Rand into the Blight, knowing that they could die. Like, what's going to happen there? I mean, it seems like they probably will follow them.
Lan's going to follow Moraine.
Yeah, of course. He's going to try to protect her, and then the others are going to follow him.
Yeah, Nynaeve will follow him, and then so
and Egwene will go after Rand, and Perrin is maybe that's why they had the whole love triangle thing. Give Perrin
there
a
you
reason.
go. I think we're going to end up with all of them there.
So I wonder if it's just going to be Ishmael fighting Rand.
I would be shocked if that's not what we haven't seen, that Baelzamond Ishmael.
Right. I would be okay with them having another Forsaken there to give the others something to do, especially like have Nynaeve and Egwene fight something. Maybe they'll just fight Trollocs or something, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Could see that happening.
Well, since it looks like that they may have reduced it down to 8, then I do think it's just going to be one Forsaken.
Oh, good point.
It is interesting because, like you're saying, broad strokes, Eye of the World, the book really is here in a lot of ways. You get Tar-Valon instead of Caemlyn.
Right, but otherwise, the major locales, the major events are happening.
Yeah, and then, we do have change with Matt not being there, probably only because of the scheduling stuff with Barney Harris and everything. Yep. There's a moment in this, we didn't talk about it, where it sounds like Moraine is kind of sicking the red Aja on Matt back.
Yeah, that's true. You think that she would stop by and talk to Lady Amalisa on the way to the Blight and be like, don't worry about that letter. I found the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah, right.
He can't channel. That other dude can't channel, but I don't know. She had other stuff on her mind, I guess.
Well, and of course, at this point, she doesn't know if Matt can't channel, presumably. He still could just be a random male channeler.
Yeah, I suppose.
But then also the business of him being left behind and her being concerned about the darkness in him and all that, I can kind of understand. But then also I'm kind of like, would Moraine want the red
Aja on somebody?
On anybody? Like, she's
ring true.
Yeah, she's not. No point is there a cordial scene between Moraine and
Landrin, It's sort of like the Jeff from Bornhold saying, you should go see a sister. We don't truck with them normally, but there's only one who can, it's like, no.
Yeah, that's
say that.
I guess it contributes to the complexities of these relationships.
Like, well, if you're going to send someone after a man who can channel, it might as well be the people who that's what they devote their lives to.
Yeah. At the same time, I'm like, wouldn't she be worried that, particularly if it's just the Reds that show up, that they would possibly kill him and not tell anybody?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if she just has a higher opinion.
She just doesn't care about Matt that much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a possibility. That point, you do kind of wonder. But anyway, I guess this also, to me, because this was the first episode that we know for sure was shot after lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
And so this does kind of solidify that Barney Harris just was not available after the COVID lockdown.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if that could have contributed.
That, I mean,
I wonder if he just was just freaked out by COVID and was like, I will not do this anymore.
Could have been that. It could have been a family member died or got COVID. Seriously sick.
And it could be the reason why just Moran and Rand are going to the Blight.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought of
policies separating fewer people together.
You and I kind of talked about this back when we were just getting leaked images and stuff, but I had just kind of thrown out there, I wonder if we're going to be able to see an effect on the production from this. And it's well, it kind of seems like we are.
Yep.
If indeed Barney's exit was influenced by COVID, and then you're saying, the possibility of the way this episode ends being somewhat influenced by maybe needing to only have so many people.
Plot changes based on COVID restrictions.
But it is kind of interesting. You have a few scenes at the beginning with a lot of people, but you don't have as many big crowd scenes. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway,
I can just hear the writers man, we worked with what we had, what we could do. The restrictions
I can't imagine how tough it must be to having to zig and zag after
losing a major cast member that and being restricted and what you can do
between location restrictions and
I get it. Won't stop me from criticizing it, but I get it.
Well, I mean, I think
it's a job, man.
And we can still point it out. We may hear later, the only reason why this happened was because of COVID, and then we can say, okay, well, that's not their fault.
That's understandable, sure.
Yeah, it still sucks, but it's not their fault. We
disagree with the choice, but we understand.
I understand why that had to be made. Anyway, any more thoughts on this?
I don't believe so. Look forward to the finale.
I think it'll drop on the day before Christmas Eve, or Christmas Adam, as my fiance told me it could be called. Adam comes before Eve.
Nice. I like it.
So that being said, I don't know when we're going to get around to recording it between our schedules and family stuff, but hopefully it won't be too long after.
Right.
So anyway,
we'll make it happen.
We are planning on doing a big mailbag episode to talk through all of the discussion we've gotten.
Witcher season 2.
Exactly.
And we may cover it at some point. I still watched it yet.
Yeah, I haven't even begun to. Man, there's so much content out now, right?
There's too much. It's too much.
It's ridiculous.
Stressing me out. I want to go see Spider-Man. Don't know when that's going to happen.
I mean, I may have said it earlier, but we're definitely in the post-COVID content dump.
Yes.
That, after everything that got held up is all kind of coming out now, and it's so much. I need to take a few weeks off. Just
I'm gonna miss stuff, and I'm gonna come back years later and be like, oh, this show came out and I missed it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, Cowboy Bebop got canceled,
right? And
I'm not too surprised at it.
No.
It felt like it didn't quite get all the way there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's that was a pretty expensive, pretty major thing, and it just came and went. And,
right, and it was just so much else. It was just kind of drowned out by. It almost makes you wonder if it would have done better if it had been released in a content desert.
Right. Yeah.
That in their back pocket for another month or two.
Yeah.
February sometime or something.
Who knows? If I always wonder if Tiger King would have been as big a deal if it weren't for the pandemic.
That's true. Because season 2 came out, and that was another one. I was just like, oh yeah, I should watch that, and just never have gotten around to it. I mean, he's in jail now, so
right. I'm not watching that. Yeah, I feel like that's just
griping in jail. I'm sure.
Right, just an attempt at a cash grab, of.
Sure.
So keep writing into us. We will discuss most of what we get. I think, as long as I don't forget about it and not mention it. Which if we ever don't address something that you send us in the mailbag,
send us again.
Send it again. We'll get to it. You can reach out to us. You can email us at stuff@tsmpodcast.com or go to our website tsmpodcast.com. Go to our contact form, fill that out, and questions, comments, corrections, we'll take them all. Or you can find us on all the socials, Podcast TSM on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And also you can support the podcast by visiting our website and clicking on that donate
the donut button.
The donut button. Donut. You can help us out, keep the lights on, and keep the ice cream from melting. Until next time, Tai'Shar Manethrin.